It is a quiet night in Sao Paulo. From this balcony, the city looks like a grid of peaceful light stretching toward a hazy purple horizon. At the center of that piece is Captain Galigo. He is a heavily built security guard with warm features and a comforting Brazilian Portuguese accent, the very picture of a protector. Then the glamour shatters. The city's hum vanishes, replaced by the weight of ancient iron. Galigo's face burns away to reveal a blackened, armored skull. Within the dark sockets, 2 crimson pinpoints ignite. This is Johann Ruttlieber, a 7-foot-tall, 800-year-old warrior lich and the first disciple of the Night Lords. Ruttlieber is the end product of a design. He was not spawned from an inherent darkness, but was meticulously processed into a weapon by the institution he spent his youth serving. In 1160s Bavaria, Johann was a young man defined by a singular, unwavering faith. He followed his father into holy service, seeking devotion over the silver mines of his birth. This hierarchy shows the progression to paladin grace, the spiritual peak Ruttlieber dedicated his life to reaching. The church leveraged this devotion, using the rank of paladin as a carrot they never intended to grant, keeping him on the front lines for decades. Between the carnage at Hatton and the realities of holy war, the spiritual peace he sought was systematically replaced by violence. By the time the church was done, the boy who wanted to be a saint had been forged into a blade that knew only how to kill. Johann's last connection to his own humanity was a shepherdess named Rachel, but while Johann was away serving the church's interests, a high-ranking cleric used a concealed oath trick to violate and ultimately kill her. When Johann demanded justice, the church responded with hypocrisy. They protected the cleric to avoid scandal and excommunicated Johann for daring to challenge the institution. The church then dispatched its paladins, the very warriors Johann once idolized, to ensure Rachel was burned at the stake. This was the moment his spiritual compass shattered. He abandoned the church's light and founded the Black Orchid Company, a mercenary unit defined by vengeance rather than glory, moving him directly into the path of the entity of greed. In 1250, the church's paladins finally cornered Ruttlieber at his fortress, Teufels Feuerfestung. They left him mortally wounded, dying on the floor of his own keep. That was when the arch-necromancer Gerrud Trellier arrived. He offered Ruttlieber a deal, a way to step past the threshold of death and settle the debt with those who had betrayed him. Ruttlieber accepted. He murdered his paladin attackers, trapping their 5 souls in a lich-binding rite, rising as a revenant, the first of the Night Lords. The church's immediate reaction was to erase Teufels Feuerfestung from all historical records. They scrubbed the fortress from every nap, choosing to redact their failure rather than acknowledge what they had created. But the monster they tried to bury was now permanently anchored to an indestructible phylactery network, ensuring he would haunt their successors for the next 8 centuries. Ruttlieber views his current existence through a single cold philosophy: I perfected them. We see this in his battlefield resurrection. Whenever an enemy falls, Ruttlieber instantly revives them to fight alongside him. This is a visceral denial of the peace he was never allowed to have. Because he was refused a clean death and a righteous life, he ensures his enemies are denied the same, turning them into permanent inventory for his master's cause. His supernatural power is the literal extension of his trauma, the manifestation of a man whose capacity for mercy was burned away by those who claimed to represent it. In 1525, Ruttlieber claimed his ultimate instrument, a massive 6-foot Zweihander blade. To power the weapon, he hunted down the cleric who had violated Rachel's centuries earlier and bound the man's soul into the land-snacked steel. The blade regenerates Ruttlieber specifically by feeding on the blood of the sanctified, priests and paladins whose faith is siphoned into the blade to mend his own rotting flesh. The church redacted its history to hide its sins, but Ruttlieber's crimson eyes and his blood-fed blade serve as the living ledger of every choice they made. He is the monster they spent 800 years trying to forget.